Hi everybody, Emily here. Today I'm back after a bit of a hiatus with another tutorial. So this tutorial, it's not my pattern, but it's a pattern that I absolutely love. They are the Topo Pants and it's by Leila Makes and the pattern is fantastic. It's just an all-around great pair of pants to grab and try on. I think she originally made them for climbing and for the outdoors, but I live in Philly and I wear them for all purposes. So don't let anything discourage you from making them. If you like this tutorial on my channel, please subscribe. It helps me be encouraged to make more of them and help you learn to sew. So you can subscribe on my YouTube channel. I also have my business account on Instagram, the Mech brand. That's where I post my sewing videos. I have my sewing patterns on there and my blossoming custom dress business. And then I also have my personal account, which is Emily L. Meckling, and this is just a loose cannon where I post everything about my life. And also, you can follow Leila Makes. I'll add hers in the description below because she is the amazing creator of this pattern. All right, my hem is just loose. I have it rolled, but in the pattern video, they use elastic, so you can do either. There are bar tacks. We have these leg panels and the knee darts, which are phenom with the top stitching. And if you keep following up the leg, another accent bar tack, which keeps the pocket strong. We have a really nice seam line on the back here that just kind of falls really nicely over your tush. And then, of course, elastic waistband with a little drawstring. That's very nice and comfortable. And then finally, we have a carabiner loop that you can just clip your keys onto, or maybe some carabiners for that matter, if you're climbing. Also, don't forget the back pocket. I love this. You can just slip your phone in there, slip a snack in there, slip anything you want to in there. And here's my tag. Neck. Step 1, gather materials. You'll need fabric, 1.5 inch elastic, thread, top stitching and dart thread is optional, interfacing, drawstring, and a drawstring threader or safety pin. For pattern pieces, we have our patch pocket, carabiner loop, our waistband with the button mark, 2 of our pocket pieces, we have our pocket linings, and then 2 of our knee panels. We have our front pants panels with the darts marked, and then our back pants panels, and then the top of the backs. Step 2, knee darts and front panels. So with our knee patches, we have to make sure that we have our center fronts aligned and that they're mirrored. And then we also want to make sure that we marked where all of our darts are going to be. And as a reminder, this is the wrong side of the fabric. So we're slowly going to start to just pinch those darts in line with all of their markings and pin in place. So I found the best way to do this is by first starting by pinning the end of each dart and then slowly going along and pinning each of the dart markings together, making sure that they're staying in line until the edge of the pants. And just as a reminder, we pin the darts on the wrong side of the knee patches and we're pinning them on the right side of the front pant panels. This way, when we sew them together, it's going to conceal those raw edges. You also want to make sure that your front panels are mirrored at the crotch. Okay, so now we have sewn the darts, and for the front panels, we're going to iron the darts away from the knee center, and for the patches, we're going to iron the darts toward the knee center. All right, we have all of our darts beautifully pressed, and now what we're going to do is flip over our panels and top stitch right alongside those creases. On the top half, we're going to sew right below the creases, and on the bottom half of the panels, we're going to sew right above, making sure to pick up the dart fabric from behind. I'm using 3 different threads in this pattern, our regular stitching thread, top stitching, and then accent dart thread. So here I'm switching out for my top stitching thread and making sure to switch those settings for the appropriate stitch that you're doing. Something to note for top stitching thread, you never want to back stitch, so you're just going to pull through the thread and tie it off on the wrong side of the fabric. For a closer look, here's the right side of the knee patch, and you can see our beautifully top stitched threads that we have. And then if you look at the back side of the fabric, you're going to see how we picked up those darts from the wrong side so that they'll all be facing toward the center knee. So before we attach these to the front panels, with wrong sides facing up, we are going to iron 1/2 inch from the top and the bottom of these panels before we attach them. So here are front pant panels facing right sides up, and then we're going to take our knee patches and line them up onto our front panels, making sure to line up all of our notches. So there's notches at the top, middle, and bottom of these. So I just wanted to make sure that they were laying flat. That's why I have so many pins. But now we're going to top stitch 2 parallel lines at the top of the panels and at the bottom of the panels. Okay, so I have top stitched the top and bottom of those panels, and now what I'm going to do is run a basting stitch down both sides to hold these in place. Okay, don't forget to change out your thread. So I'm removing our top stitching and I'm putting in our regular stitching thread. This is my second thread change, and now we're going to change our settings to a basting stitch. And for this stitch, you want to go right along the edge, so about 1/8 of an inch. This way, whenever we join the front and back sides together, you won't see that basting stitch. All right, now that our sides are basted, at the bottom of the patches, we are going to measure in 4 inches from either side, and we're going to mark 2 lines where we're going to put our bar tacks. So here's my third thread change. I'm doing red for a little pop of color with my bar tacks. All right, I know it's not much, but look at these. I love them. I love the pop of red. All right, step 3, top stitch the faux fly curve. Here I have the fly curve pattern piece, which is going to help with our stitching, and I found it best to cut along that farthest stitch line. This way we can lay it right on our left front panel and just trace along the edge. So I'm just marking where that top stitching line is going to go, and then I'm going to do another one about 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch on the inside of that line. So here I'm just marking the beginning, and then I'll mark the end of where that stitch should go. Okay, so thread change tally, we're at number 4, and we are going to put on our top stitching thread and change our settings before we stitch that faux fly curve. Okay, our faux fly curve is looking great, and now we are going to put in a bar tack right there. She has it marked on her pattern piece as well. And we are at thread change number 5 for the bar tacks. Step 4, attach the pockets. Now it's time for the pockets. We are going to grab our pocket lining. I'm using the same fabric as my pants, but if you wanted to use something thinner, if you're using a thick material, you can take that now. Make sure to sew your right sides together. And once you have it all lined up, we are just going to sew those curves. Okay, here's my 6th thread change with our regular thread, and make sure that you have your straight stitch setting. So here I have attached the pocket lining to my pants. And what you want to do now is take your scissors, and I just like trimming away the bulk of that seam. This way when we flip it for right sides out, it'll make it just a little less bulky. Another thing you can do is along that curve, you can just kind of snip into it and just be very careful here not to cut into that seam that you've sewn. Now we're going to take that pocket lining and flip it to the inside of our pants. And we're going to fold that nice and top stitch along the edge there. But first, take it to your iron so it's nice and flat. Okay, you guessed it. We're switching again. This is time number 7 to our top stitching thread and our sewing machine settings. Here we have our beautifully top stitched pocket openings. Those are 2 parallel lines. And now we are going to flip over those front panels, and it's time to attach our pocket main pieces. So grab your pocket main pieces. These can be accent fabrics. They can be the same as your pant panel fabrics. And we're just going to line those edges up with our pocket linings. So it's really important when we sew these together only to sew the pocket main with the pocket lining. Do not sew them to the pants. Okay, so for the pockets, I'm switching to a serger. So I'm just gonna go do those 2 edges with this. Okay, moment of appreciation. Our front panels are complete. We have our beautifully finished pocket openings, and our pockets are nice and serged on all the edges. I also went ahead and ran a basting stitch along the top edge of the pocket and the side edge of the pocket. This just holds it in place when we start connecting all the panels together. All right, step 5, prepare the back panels. So go ahead and grab your back panels and both of the yokes for these panels, and make sure that your panels are mirrored. So what we're going to do is attach the yokes to the top of the back panels. And how we do this is just by carefully lining up the notches and pinning in place. It's really important to go off the notches she has so that you can ease in the panels to the yokes. Once the yokes are sewn on, you're going to take it to your iron and iron that seam allowance up towards the waistband. So here are the yokes connected to our back panels, and if you flip it over, you'll see that seam allowance is pushed up towards the top, and here's why. We're going to now top stitch 2 parallel lines to hold that seam allowance in place. So here is our 9th thread change to top stitching, and look how beautiful, nice and finished. On to step 6, attach the patch pocket. So grab your patch pocket piece. I am doing 1, and I'm going to put it on the back of the right pant leg. But before we do that, we need to finish all the edges and then iron all the edges in by 1/2 inch. Okay, this is ahead in the video, but this is just me attaching my brand tag onto the back pocket. Ideally, you want to attach your tag before you sew it onto your panels. So this is just a reminder to throw that tag on now before we attach this pocket to our back panel. All right, here is my pocket, and what I've done is gone ahead and top stitched that opening 2 parallel lines, and then I've gone and finished and ironed all of the edges 1/2 inch. So in her pattern, she says to place the top of the pocket about 1 inch above that front knee panel. So I've just brought that over and put it in place, and now I'm going to pin and sew around the edges. Here is our attached pocket with the opening, and now I'm going to add 2 bar tacks, one at the top of the opening and one at the bottom. Here's thread change number 10, and there are our beautiful bar tacks. So the back pocket is finished. Step 7, join front pant panels. Here are 2 front panels, and we're going to put them right sides together and pin and sew along that crotch curve. Here is our thread change for our regular stitching thread. So here is our finished seam, and I've also finished the edges of that crotch curve. Now we're going to open it up and top stitch down the front. All right, so we just did this long stitch, and now we're going to do another one that's parallel and starts at the bottom of the crotch and comes all the way up to the bottom of that faux fly. Here's a closer look, and remember, don't backstitch whenever you're doing top stitching. So with this one, you'll probably have a loose thread. You just want to flip your pants to the wrong side and then slowly pull it through. This is some that I've already started, so I'm just taking a needle here and pulling that top stitching thread loop all the way through to expose the loose end. And then I'm just going to tie it in like 2 or 3 knots to seal it off. To finish off these front panels, we're going to add another bar tack right there at the bottom horizontally. Step 8, join back pant panels. Here we have our 2 back panels. This is that tag that I added with our patch pocket. And what we're going to do next is put our right sides together, and we want to line up that curve of the back, and we're going to sew those together and serge the edges. Okay, so I sewed the curve together, and now we're going to open it up and flip it over, and we want to iron this to the right. And then once we have that ironed, we're going to top stitch it down from the right side of the fabric. Step 9, join front and back inseams. All right, so these are our beautifully finished backs. And now what we're gonna do is put back and fronts together, make sure that right sides are facing, and carefully we're going to begin lining up the crotch with all of the notches going down both pant leg inseams. Once we have that done, we're gonna sew those together. So here I have it pinned, and you're gonna start at the center and sew out towards the ankles. This way you can ease in that front pant leg because it might be a tiny bit tighter than the back pant leg. So start at the center and go down each leg. So here's the inseam sewn together, and I serged all the edges. And the next thing that we wanna do is, with the wrong sides facing up, iron that excess seam allowance toward the back of the pants. So here I am just ironing that excess seam allowance, and once we have that ironed with the right side of the fabric facing up, we're going to top stitch all along that seam 2 parallel lines. And here are our finished inseams. So they're the 2 top stitched parallel lines, and now we can move on to step 10, join left and right side seams. So to join the side seams, a couple of things that she notes in her pattern are to line up the pocket opening stitches with the back yoke stitches. So these stitches right here should line up perfectly with those ones right there. And what I like to do is measure in a 1/2 inch and mark that with chalk, since that's the allotted seam allowance. And I do that on both sides, give it a nice chalk marking, making sure that a 1/2 inch is marked for both of those. And then once I have that done, I match up those chalk lines and pin it into place. I also like to take my roller and mark the 1/2 inch point once it's pinned, so that I make sure when I'm sewing, I hit right over where those seams match. All right, people, so this is the inside of the pants. I sewed the sides together and finished them with a serger, and now I will flip them inside out, and they are looking so good. I'm so excited about how they're turning out. So the last thing we want to do here is I folded and ironed that towards the back of the pants, and now we want to top stitch just along that line on the back panel, and we'll add a bar tack right here where those seams meet. Step 11, sew and attach carabiner loop. These are looking amazing. So I finished the sides, top stitching, and added that little pop of red bar tack at the bottom of each pocket. Now you're gonna take the piece of fabric for your carabiner loop, and this is going to attach on the back panel right under the waistband. So we want to take this to the iron and begin by folding that piece of fabric in half, long ways. And once you have that done, you're going to open it up and we're going to conceal those raw edges now. So you want to take each edge and fold it up by another 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch and just iron that flat. Okay, so I'm switching back to my top stitching thread and we just want to sew 2 parallel lines to make that a nice clean channel for the carabiner loop. All right, here's our finished loop piece, and what we're going to do now is on the back panel of our pants, we're going to pin this in place. And I like to pin it, and I think in her pattern it says about 1 inch from the side of the pants. So I'm just pinning them both right next to each other, and then we're going to put a stay stitch in. So you're going to want to sew this about 1/8 an inch from the edge, and that'll just hold it in place while we attach the waistband. Step 12, sew waistband buttonholes. So here's my waistband, and what I like to do is mark the buttonhole markings on both sides. This way I know exactly where to put that interfacing. And on the wrong side of the fabric, we want to take our interfacing and center it to those buttonholes and then just iron it in place. This is going to be a stabilizer for whenever we make the buttonholes for this waistband. So something that I always do is sample out my buttonhole presser foot on a scrap piece of fabric. I just used a very small button and it looked to be about the right width to fit my twill tape through, which I'm using in place of drawstring. On her pattern, she suggests drawstring, which I think is a great idea because it's a bit thicker, but for now I'm using twill tape. It should work just fine. So once we have that buttonhole ready to go, we're going to flip to our right sides and we're going to sew our 2 buttonholes starting with the center from our markings. So take it to your machine and just line up that marking right under your button presser foot and get it started. Very important, make sure you tear these open before you attach the waistband to your pants. So just carefully go through and tear those things open. Step 13, attach waistband and elastic. Okay, so there is our waistband with our opened buttonholes, and now what we're gonna do is fold this in half, and you wanna make sure that the right sides are facing out. So fold it in half and we're going to iron that in place. So once that's ironed, I also ironed the top edge 3/8 of an inch inward. And then once you have that done, you're going to match up your waistband edges with right sides together. And we're just going to sew 1/2 inch from the edge to hold those in place. Okay, so give it a good iron. And now starting from the center where the buttonholes are, you're going to begin pinning it all the way around the circumference of the waist with that seam allowance unfolded. So here's a closer look. You want your right sides to be together, and I'm putting my buttonholes on the outside of my pants, but if you want to put them on the inside, just flip the waistband to be the other way. So pin all around the circumference, making sure to line up the notches, and then we're gonna sew right where that iron mark is, so 3/8 of an inch away from the edge. Okay, here's where we're at now. I just sewed the one side of the waistband together, and what we're gonna do next is push up those raw edges to the inside of the waistband so that when we fold it over, we're gonna conceal all of those raw edges. So to show you more closely, the way that we're going to attach this waistband is by folding along that center fold, and then you're going to take the raw edge that's not sewn yet and roll it under about 3/8 of an inch and line it up with that sew line that you just made to attach the front of the waistband. In her pattern, she recommends putting a basting stitch to hold this all in place, which I think is a great idea just because we're going to be attaching it from the right side of the pants. So if you want to, you can pin it in place and then run a basting stitch. So here's my method. I didn't do the basting stitch, but rather I pinned all along the ditch, making sure to grab that fabric from the inside. So as you can see, I'm picking up that fabric and I have my pins right in the ditch so that I can just sew or pull them out as I'm sewing. Also, we need an opening for the elastic to be inserted. So in the back of your pants, you want to leave about a 2 to 4 inch gap of opening so that we can insert the elastic. So just put some vertical pins there so you know where to start and where to stop whenever you're sewing. So here it is at the machine. There are my vertical pins. I'm just going to start at the one vertical pin, lower my needle into the ditch, and you're just slowly going to work your way all the way around the waistband, making sure to stay in that ditch and that you're picking up the fabric from the other side. So here we are approaching that second vertical needle. You want to stop there, do a little back stitch, and then you can remove it from your sewing machine. And look here, we will have an opening where we can put in our elastic. Okay, this clip looks a little crazy, but I measured my waist and added another inch so that we could overlap and attach the elastic together. I found that measurement works best. So then you're gonna take your threader and just work it through that whole waistband until you get it to the other side. So here I got it to the other side and I'm just gonna pin those pieces, the inch overlap, and now is a great time to try on the pants. Make sure the elastic is a good width, that it's comfortable. If so, we are going to sew those pieces together. So here I'm just sewing a box and then an X in the middle of that box so it's held nice and tight. Now we can snip all of the thread pieces and get all those frays out of the way and then just stretch it into our waistband. It's so satisfying, this part. Okay, now we have to close our little opening. So just flip those under and then we're gonna go back to the right side and stitch in the ditch. All right, now that these are done, we are going to add the zigzag stitch. So you're gonna go 3/8 of an inch from the bottom and 3/8 of an inch from the top. And then as you go, just slowly pull about 6 inches at a time so that you're evenly distributing that bunched fabric. So this is me just doing my top stitching for the waistband with my top stitching thread and zigzag stitch. All right, it's done. It looks beautiful. Now we can put through our drawstring, or in my case, twill tape. Okay, so I got my twill tape through and now I'm just cutting it and I'll tie off those ends to make sure that they don't pull back through those buttonholes. And now our waistband is finished. Step 14, hem the pants. So I tried on my pants and I just pinned up where I wanted them to fall. I'm not adding the bungee to my pants, I'm just doing a regular hemmed edge. So I'm just pinning around the circumference and then I will top stitch to hold that in place. All right, that pattern was amazing. And I did change the thread a total of 23 times. Honestly, it probably was more than that, but that's what I tallied on this and that's what we're sticking with. So if you decide to change your thread, comment below how many times you did and we can have a little competition. Also, yeah, buy this pattern. I'm gonna put the link below for the listing in Etsy. It's just really great to support local indie pattern makers. And then you can follow along, like I said, all of our accounts to see updates on patterns and tester calls, etc. So I hope you enjoyed this video and like and subscribe, please.